Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Storytime with Rob. I hope you're having a great week, and I have a great story for you today, and I know you're going to like it because I do. So, anyway, um, I hope you can figure it out before I get to the end. Many of you will, but some of you may be struggling just a little bit. So, here we go. It's called A Kingdom in a File Drawer. Here we go. Frank's early childhood was a glorious real-life fantasy. His father had been an oil baron and had amassed a fortune. Now Dad was a gentleman farmer, and the family was living in luxury. Their home was a sprawling country estate near Syracuse, New York, an opulent manor surrounded by immaculate gardens and manicured greenery and rolling fields of grain. A splendid property which Frank's mother had christened Rose Lawn. Life at Rose Lawn was everything a little boy could wish for. Adorning parents, plenty of room to romp and to play. In this way, Frank's youth was unmarred by conventional childhood trauma until one day. Frank was exploring his father's grain fields. The boy, his mind, were wandering equally happily. All at once he was jolted from his daydreams. It was a stranger, someone young Frank had never seen before, a figure towering over him, standing rigid and alone. Frank ran home. For months thereafter, each night the same nightmare. He would meet the stranger again in his father's field, and in those dread dreams, the stranger would chase him. I don't know if you've ever had anybody chase you in a dream, but it's not fun. And then Frank would wake up. It seemed an unfair blemish on the boy's otherwise carefree childhood. He was so happy at Roselawn until bedtime, that was. Then in slumber, he would walk the open fields once more, only to meet and to be pursued by a nameless, faceless stranger. What happened after the stranger acquired a name and a face is the rest of the story. Now, Frank is a grown man with a family of his own, a wife and 4 sons. There's a timid knock on his study door. His youngsters have brought some neighborhood friends to the house to hear another one of Daddy's marvelous stories. With 4 boys of his own, Daddy has become an adept storyteller. So Daddy reaches into his imagination and into his own childhood as he begins. For his eager young listeners, Daddy creates a splendid city, a happy place engulfed in green, far from the clutches of care. Daddy remembers Roselawn, where he grew up, and his descriptions are quite vivid. For the children gathered around him, he breathes life into the faceless stranger of his own youthful nightmares. But now, the stranger is no longer threatening. He is tame, and he has a face. One of the youngsters interrupts. "What does Daddy call this wonderful kingdom?" they asked. Daddy stops. He isn't prepared for this. Daddy quickly, his eyes about the room for an indication, a clue, something to call his fantasy land. His eyes come to rest on a file cabinet in the corner, and without thinking, he speaks what he reads on the lowermost file drawer. The name is satisfactory to his young audience, and it will remain forever. One day, Daddy wrote the story he told of the carefree metropolis engulfed in green, which he called Emerald City. and of the once sinister stranger he had met in his father's field, which in reality had been nothing more than a scarecrow, and of the marvelous fantasy kingdom spontaneously named after a file drawer, the file drawer below A through N, you know, O through Z. For thus was born to L. Frank Baum the magnificent tale which weaves its web of enchantment about the hearts of children still to this day. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Not sure if you guessed that or not, but that's a great movie and a great story, and I hope you enjoyed this. And until tomorrow, be safe.